Captain Jack Sparrow, Blackbeard, and even Captain Morgan. But I'm going to tell you about 3 independent and notorious pirates of their time that span across 3 centuries and 2 continents. First, I'm going to inform you of Grace O'Malley, and her reign was during the 16th century. Then I'm going to tell you about Charlotte de Berry, and her reign was during the 17th century. And lastly, I'm going to tell you about Madame Chen. She was a pirate during the 19th century. Grace O'Malley was a pirate during the Elizabethan era of England, according to David Bain, local historian. Her father was Black Oak O'Malley, the chieftain of their clan, and they were seafaring people. They got all their money and trades from saltwater fish. He traded with Scotland and Spain due to the English hold on everything. This was during the King Henry VIII period at this time. And this is according to Young, author of Sea Queens. Grace O'Malley became a pirate because she wanted to stop the English tyranny over their land. So she pirated all the coastal islands of Scotland, England, and even Spain. And she chose to force Spain to trade because of their ties with England and Queen Catherine. Grace O'Malley was married to Richard Burke of Clark Island. His castle was Rockfleet. And by marrying him, she could gain that castle, which would be the whole island, pretty much, between her family's castles and that castle. She could view for any attacks. And during that time, it was Breham Law, and that meant that after a year of being married, she could dismiss him, which she did, and she took his castle. And the story is that she could tie her ship off to the bed accidentally. But she loved Richard so much, and they stayed married until he died. Now I'm going to tell you about Charlotte de Berry and her 17th century reign as pirate queen. Okay. Her 17th century reign as pirate queen. This was during the time, she was actually from London. I know that her last name sounds French, but she was from London. This was during the time of the London fires, and the James I was king at this time, according to Britannica.com. She fell in love with a sailor and decided to follow him into the Navy, dressed as a man. When the lieutenant of the Navy at that time found out about her being a woman, he declared her husband mutinous and sentenced him to flogging, which at that time, if one person on the ship flogged, every person flogged. So he was flogged to death. She then, at the next port, after her husband was killed, she then at the next port went off the ship, dressed like a woman, and bought a pistol and shot that lieutenant. She then worked as a prostitute on the docks, and until she was captured by a merchant who was a rapist and abused her very badly. When they reached Africa to do his trading and all his merchantry, she convinced his crew members to mutiny against him, and she chopped off his head. She then fell in love with a Spaniard, and they went to pirating, and their boat was sunk during a storm, and her and the crew and her husband was in a life raft. Well, during this time of the life raft was days. They went days without food. So they all drew lots, or straws, if you may, to see who was Chin. Madame Chin was a pirate during the 19th century. First, Madame Chin was a prostitute. She was so beautiful that this pirate, Zheng Yi, decided he was going to capture her. When he captured her, she was so independent of herself. She told him, "I want half of all of your treasures that you get." Of course, he was like, "No." So she went to kill him, and he decided to marry her. And during their time as pirates, he was so ferocious, a pirate, that it is told that they would nail their captives to the deck of his ship and beat them unmercifully. He died in a typhoon, and she dressed in his armor, got some of his weapons, and went in front of the crew members and claimed the right to be captain. From there, she was captain for a very long time until she retired. But while captain, she would pay her crew members double the fare if they brought back the heads of all their victims. This is according to an expert who is also a student at Spring Hill College. Her name is Brady Jones. Then, Madame Chin, later in life, she would levy taxes. She would do levies and taxes against the surrounding islands, and she would also sell them protection against other pirates. So she did this for a while, but when she retired, she worked as a madam in a brothel, and she had her own casinos. So now that I have told you a little bit about these three amazing women and their feats, I know you don't hear much about these three. You hear mainly about Anne Bonny and her Mary Read. But the only amazing thing that I could find on them was Anne Bonny was chasing Calico Jack's tail and fled their bellies so they would not be hung. But now that I've told you about Grace O'Malley and in her 16th century reign as a pirate, I've told you about Charlotte de Berry and her 17th reign as a pirate. And lastly, I've told you about Madame Chin and her 19th century reign as a pirate. I hope you have a little more insight and you want to look them up. There's a lot more, but I couldn't fill it all in. So if you see me afterwards, I can give you some information.